Hello and welcome to the Citizens Chat Show this afternoon. It's a pleasure to be in your company. I am your host, Priscilla Regina Daloga, a global moderator of current affairs. And today's current affairs are going to be spanning from political legacies that are ending to political legacies that are unending. East Africa, Africa, and also climaxing it with Uganda. Now, of course, our current affairs are going to be starting with the political ending legacies. We do have Kenya, East Africa, Africa, and the globe by and large mourning the passing of Raila Odinga, known to many as Baba or Tinga to some communities. A former Prime Minister, long-time opposition leader, and not just for Kenya, but also very influential in African politics. We also get to see him as one of Africa's most influential political figures of today. Now, for over 4 decades, Raila Odinga did champion democracy. He championed reform and national unity from detention under the Moi regime, and his role in the 2008 Grand Coalition, and then thereafter in 2010 of the new constitution for the Republic of Kenya. As if that's not enough, he was able to build a whole movement, the Orange Democratic Movement, Kenya's strongest opposition force, and extended his influence across the region through East African Community and later on the African Union. So today we get to reflect on his life. We reflect on his legacy, and this will be under the theme Raila Odinga, the end of an era, legacy, leadership, and the future of East African politics. Allow me to introduce my panelists for today. Immediate left, I do have Dr. Robert Ojambo, a political scientist at Chambogo University. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Yes. It's a pleasure to have you too. Honorable Henry Banyezachi, NRM Member of Parliament, Rwanda County, you're most welcome. Former, yes, but it's still people look up to you. And
Good evening to viewers and good evening to Madam Priscilla.
Founding member of People's Front for Freedom, Madam Salam Musumba. Honorable, you're most welcome.
Then you would have added to me founding member of the NRM.
Next time I will do that.
Yes,
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's a great pleasure to be here, particularly to speak about a seismic happening, the loss of a great son of the continent.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. A veteran politician. We do have UPC well represented here. That is Joseph Ocheno. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. You're calling me veteran. At 80, Raila is really, truly veteran. This morning I was sharing tears with one of his family members and a colleague. I met him early this year, and I must say that he's an extraordinary staff, that whatever people's opinions are, the comings and passings. So, yes, sad to be here, but delighted to be able to share some of the experiences. But she's not only founding member of PFF, but she's a founding member of FDC.
Yes, I did.
Yes, we're going with the current status.
So let's go, since we are talking about eras.
Yeah.
Talking about profiles
Yes.
and legacies.
Yes,
That
that is very
So
true.
some of us have found nothing.
In Chambogo
Yeah,
University.
true.
Yes.
You're founding born.
Allow me to introduce
founding born in Uganda
Major
People's Congress.
Paula Awit, who is the Director External Affairs with the NRM. Good afternoon to you, Major.
Good afternoon. Greetings to the viewers and to my colleagues.
Kadogo. Since we are talking about eras now.
The end of the
Kadogo
Kadogo
NRM.
era.
Founding member of NRN.
Okay. All right. Now, to help us understand the significance of the passing of Raila Odinga and also what he leaves behind, especially in terms of questions for the political landscape as well as the opposition side. I'm privileged to be having members seated here who belong to opposition parties in the current Ugandan regime. They'll help us paint the picture. But speaking of painting the pictures, let's first start with the beginning. Raila Odinga spending decades in Kenya's political arena, from imprisonment under the Moi regime, thereafter having a coalition in which he then became Prime Minister of Kenya. He did do his service and due diligence to the country. It begs the question, how did his own personal journey actually shape him into the political and democratic leader that he has grown to be up to the time of his passing? Let me start with ladies first.
Yes,
Honorable
thank you.
Musum.
Well, we are talking about a political family in Kenya, starting from his father, Jaramogi Ojinga Odinga, a name that was so famous on Radio Uganda, a name that brought jitters to whoever was listening as we grew up, and a great privilege for Raila Amolo Odinga to have taken on from his father and continued the family political legacy of statesmanship. And so we're describing a statesman of the second generation in Kenya, a family that speaks about colonial era, independence, and post-colonial era. His father had the opportunity to be the president of Kenya, and he deliberately gave way to Kenyatta the first, from the Kikuyu tribe, the Mau Mau people, because that rebellion that brought about independence was hatched and happened largely in Mount Kenya area. And so the fact that Odinga Senior was able to work with Kenyatta for the betterment, for the stability, and for the growth of a nation, a new nation at independence, is a legacy that has lived, and it has created love for the Odinga family. And so Raila and his generation built on that. And like his father, he actually gave up many opportunities of being the main man for the bigger good. I don't think that Kenyans have fully understood his political role in the stability and in the pursuit of freedom and democracy. They haven't fully understood it because it's been cyclical. But I remember him largely at the time of the constitution making. There was a phase in Kenyan history of political violence, the kind of violence that led to assassinations, that led to disappearances, that led to imprisonment. It was an era in Kenya. And if at all you were walking on the street and a car with a registration number GK, GK, it was the meaning of terror. And so they lived through these phases, and they overcame them through dialogue, through statesmanship, largely. And they carried their populations with them. They led their people. It's not like Uganda here where you're like picking and sending, they've all gone all over the place, you know? But this was leading their group. And I'll tell you that the Luo people, I'm going to have a hard time to find a replacement for him. I'm speaking Luo because the politics in Kenya is largely that. And the Luo people for a long time have suffered discrimination. They have suffered a lot of political pain, and they've lost their biggest sons out of politics. The first one was Tom Mboya. I remember my mother telling me stories of Tom Mboya. As a child, you can imagine talking, maybe I was 3 or 5. I was so I used to listen to radio a lot. It was, anyway, the only entertainment in the home. And so Tom Mboya, when Tom Mboya was killed, Tom Mboya, the whole of East Africa was chilling, the whole of it. And remember, with only one radio station. The other radio station was BBC, Voice of America, and
Deutsche Welle.
Yes, and Radio Rwanda. Those things used to go, those sound waves used to reach as far as Namwendwa, where I was. And so I remember them like yesterday.
South Africa.
And so the life has been cut out of the Luo. They didn't call him Baba or father for nothing. He was their security. He was their beacon.
Okay.
He read the politics for them. He interpreted. He made them safe. And I do remember I attended a function where I ended up being the chief guest instead of him. The governor, Professor Peter Nyang-Nyong, was launching his senatorial bid at Tom Mboya Institute in Kisumu. So I was meant to be there with other people, but they didn't show up. And so I ended up being the guest of honor in Kenya. And so I told them, because I was watching them, I don't speak Swahili, but I could watch them, and I said, you the people of Kisumu, you're not yet safe.
Okay.
Because constitutions, you're celebrating a new constitution, but I want to tell you that constitutions are subverted.
We'll get into the constitution. But allow me to first go back to something you mentioned. So you called him Baba.
This vulnerability is what I begin to see, and this is what the people who love Baba must watch out before they mourn him, because they have a lifetime too.
Yes.
But they must.
You refer to him as Baba. Allow me to then extend the conversation to Joseph there and ask you, this is a man who was symbolic of pro-democracy and struggle. These are qualities that made him stand out as a significant leader in shaping the politics of Kenya. And so from where you're seated, through your lenses, how did these qualities actually position him to be such an instrumental figure in shaping the so many elements that now Kenya prides of today?
You know, in a way, I'm just pleased that Salom spoke before I did, putting in some of this context, because sometimes you can get carried away in some of the spaces, particularly when and if you're emotively involved, to think that possibly it's all about me, myself, and things like that. What you're saying is not everybody else. So quite clearly, objectively, some of these things are actually genuinely just sinking in, Priscilla. And I told some global network that it is very likely, Dr. Jambu will probably agree with me, that I think it will take several years for the reality to dawn on not only Kenyans, the Luo community that I'll speak about, but also broader East Africa, that Raila was basically a bigger, more important political figure in the sub-region than we so thought. Somebody was trying to draw quick comparison with Nelson Mandela, and fair enough observations. But actually, if you look at the conflicting dynamics, you realize that there is something quite unique about Raila and, interestingly, the family. And I've been giving some thoughts today, including where I have to remember that actually I was shaking hands with his older brother, Dr. Buru, who's a massively very influential in their home in Bondo. But guess what? As Salam said, these are children of top privilege. And this really is my most important point. Children of top privilege. And I never saw it about it that way. I never thought about it that way until sort of some of these realities. And yet, their livelihoods in privilege, the reality is absolutely ideologically driven, that they're people who drive from the bottom, starting from their father, and they've never been taken away from. And that usually is not particularly easy. So the Baba element, you notice I normally do first names very, very commonly, and then the Mr. So's. I started calling Raila Baba in the last few years, the more some of these things got involved. And I suddenly realized that, well, to say so without Baba is almost something lacking. You know, that you're doing some kind of disorganized mischief. Now, early this year, I happened to have been in a space in which Raila led, together with Governor Orengo, this is the Luo Nation reunion thing. And guess what? Their chief guests were President Ruto and President Museveni. And this is at the heart of Luo land. For me, I was basically waiting to see how the people were going to react. To be very blunt, we don't want to pretend about it. That crowd was really not a crowd that would sing for Ruto and for Museveni to clap for them. They did not necessarily clap that much. But you could actually see that it is only Raila to bring out that African thing that we're trying to say. Not only is it about guest, this is authority, but the message beyond the ordinary. And so, is it, I think for us, the political class here, credibility, what we represent, and how we carry ourselves.
Legitimacy.
People genuinely watch, and that is the language called legitimacy. These guys gained it, they built it, they got it, it is real, it is actually factual, down to the grassroots. And it's not surprising that when I was seeing some of the reactions at the airport, and I hope some of these things get calmed down, I was wondering, that's why I was saying, I was talking to somebody in Kenya.
Or with the Kenyans
yes, and I
going
was
to
saying,
the airport.
Indeed. So who can bang the table?
Yeah.
I noticed one crowd incident in which Governor...
Who remains to bang the
Indeed.
table. Yeah.
Governor Orengo had to come in. And I'm not quite sure whether these guys have got some of those voices. So is it about the community, Luo community, or is it really general about Kenya? I think it's about Kenya. And I think it's also very much about the sub-region. Because part of the hint that we must talk about is that the recent politics in Kenya, which flew into Uganda, the fluidity of terms of contradictions about Uganda's role in the sub-regions, Kenya's own role, some of these abuses, the post-election violences in Kenya, where we are, and we are also going to be discussing our own contradictions and things like that. It needs big names. I am not quite sure where we're going to be going as a sub-region.
We'll get into the question of where we could be going, but that gives us a picture of the man that we're talking about today, a man of influence. Speaking of influence, he's a man that influenced governments. And he influenced leaders beyond his own borders of Kenya. We're talking of a loss. A loss is a loss, whether it is your enemy or your friend. A loss is a loss. Let's talk about the loss in terms of government to government measure, which the government of Kenya has lost a leader, and so we want to understand the government of Uganda and how they feel about this, especially in light of the fact that there's been strained relations between President Museveni and the fallen influential figure Raila Odinga.
Of course, regardless of whether or not there had been good or bad relationship, normally, maybe in Africa, I'm not sure about Europe, but when there's loss of life, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of Umuntu, we tend not to bring the bad. Everybody tend to mourn. So the feeling, the Umuntu spirit is that whether your friend or your opponent is bad, it's good alive, and it's bad that he dies. So normally, it is not brought out. And I think that's a common practice in Uganda. I only saw in Uganda once in Parliament when somebody critically described a dead in the house, in the Parliament. And that was Professor Kagonyera. When Kafume Mukasa died, the body was brought there. And everybody was talking good, but Professor Kagonyera said, no way, you people are lying. This man lying down here, and you say he's good. And he went on and on. I was a little surprised, but that
is a Mchiga. Mchiga never tell lies.
So it wouldn't. But I know in the past there has been temptation to frame Museveni as an anti-Luo person, and therefore it would pitch him against the Luo leaders, including Obama, including President Obama. But I think because of our scientific approach to politics in NRM, we sidestepped that. But there was a deliberate attempt for a long time to pitch Museveni like a person against the Luo line, and therefore would naturally get in conflict with the Luo leaders, including Raila. I am myself Luo, but that is it. So, but along the road, many offenses were amended, including even during campaigns. Raila came to meet Museveni. And I'm sure in the Umuntu spirit, he must not have walked away with nothing. And also recently, in his bid for Africa...
Which nothing?
Huh?
Which nothing?
Support for fuel for campaign and whatever.
They were past that.
No, he wouldn't.
They were past that.
Raila.
I can tell you bigger institutions.
Nah.
I can tell you bigger institutions which have got.
Reducing him
Personally,
to
we
two
get
figures.
it.
Raila.
Personally, we get it from our comrades and friends. So if you people don't, that is up to you.
You're not right.
But I wouldn't be surprised for comrades to support each other, logistical and finance at some stage. That shows friendly in the struggle. So if you think it's for buying mandasi, that is up to you. Now, in the latest bid to vie for chairperson of African Union, Museveni was on record in AU of publicly supporting him, and he fought so hard to even dissuade other African states, or especially East and Southern African states, who wanted to front. Even Uganda wanted to front a candidate, but Amama and others were earmarked for that candidature. But President Museveni prevailed and said, no, we can't front a candidate when you have Raila from Kenya. And he publicly campaigned for him. I remember even in AU, he tried to actually use a language some people thought was undiplomatic to the Djibouti person who actually eventually won. He told him that you're a young man and we are fronting Raila. And then that guy was a foreign affairs minister of his country. And unfortunately also in his speech later, he used quite a undiplomatic language because he said that fronting Raila, they are not, we are looking for somebody to the African Union, but not a retirement age. Retirement package. He referred to Raila that way. But I think that was when Museveni had made it clear for his support for Raila. But so therefore a loss to Raila, especially when the last interface was our support for him in the African Union, would be a big loss to Uganda. And remember, all that passed under the water, in English they say all is well that ends well. So we would judge by the ending, the last occurrence. Honorable Banyezaki, if you travel from Kabale to Kampala with your brother and you're eating muchomo all the way to Lokaya, and then you are very happy, then you quarrel to Kampala, you'd have spoiled everything. You are better quarreling from Kabale, then from Lokaya you eat muchomo laughing up to Kampala. So the wellness is judged by the ending. The wellness is judged by the ending. So despite all that had happened, at least the ending, by Museveni's open support for him, for African Union, we therefore disregard the rest. But I can, before I take leave of the topic, let me talk about also what I feel about him, in that the Kenyan politics seems to have been so tribalized, or what do you call it, the Luo versus the rest. To the extent that one time when it happened, I was working in Geneva, you'd see even at the embassy, these guys would work in a group of the Luo and a group of the other. In the embassy, these are same diplomats. And it was unfortunate. And yet, we would interface with our colleagues from Tanzania, who would be so united that even the language, even if a Tanzanian from the same mother, they would use Swahili. But you'd see physically, you got a Kenyan, a Kakun is talking Luo, then the other Kakun from the embassy. It was so ugly. And again, unfortunately, the name Raila would be rubbed into it. The name would be rubbed into it. So I find it could have done better to make that non-tribalization of the politics of Kenya.
But by and large, the end justifies the means.
Yeah, towards the end, a lot seems to have been closing up, and that would be good for Kenya and good for East Africa.
Okay, Honorable Henry, let's talk about achievements. To you, paint us a picture of what you saw as Raila Odinga's most outstanding achievements when it comes to his position in Kenyan politics, East Africa, and even Africa by and large. And also, while you are at that, help us understand, with these achievements, focusing on him as an opposition political figure, how he was able to turn opposition into a platform that can encourage national dialogue and reform.
Me, I see Raila Odinga as a Pan-Africanist, and when at the East African level, he was a true East Africaner. And his leadership, and he's transcended boundaries, and narrowing him to ethnicity of the Luo would be demeaning him. And Raila Odinga, disadvantaged as he was, that he did not become the president of Kenya, but Raila Odinga shaped the politics of Kenya, and he did so positively and in a mature way. And he's an epitome of the kind of leaders that we should be having in our countries. But for him to slide into that kind of personality he was also acting in an environment that was accommodative. Despite the fact that there was an era during, I think, was it Moi, when he was sent to jail, but I think they overcame that. But the environment was conducive for him to be what he is today. And he was the face of the positive opposition in Kenya for all this period of time. Of course, he was loved by many. He was loved by the ghettos, the ghetto people, the hustlers. He was loved by civil society actors. He was loved by diplomats. He was loved by the private sector. He was loved by all. And I think that is what makes him what he is. And in terms of our politics here in Uganda now, the kind of representation he made, it is what we lack. Because you would see the person that would be into the Raila figure in Uganda here would be Besigye. Because Besigye, much as he's in jail, and whatever we talk and what, the opposition here in Uganda, the face of the opposition, many people look at the face of the opposition as Besigye, not Chagulanyi, not... of course, Mao has joined, can say he has joined us, which is good. Many others are joining us. But when you look at the Besigye, is the face of the opposition, even when he's in jail. How I wish that the leadership in this country, my president, would be like what he was saying, my brother over there, would have that kind of political environment where Museveni is sitting with Besigye, and even if when they have disagreed, but they agree on how to take the nation first, to take the nation forward. But the kind of what is pertains today now, you see all people call for a dialogue, for forgiveness, and of course Besigye being who he is, a true Muchiga of himself, he said, me, I will not bow down to ask for pardon for a sin I have not committed. But we would have loved to see at the end of the day Besigye sitting with Museveni, forming even a government, but on principle, not on twisted position, and not on the issue of what my brother was saying there, that how much do I give you so that I buy your soul? Odinga never sold his soul, and that is what also lacking in Uganda, because most of the people who are called so-called opposition, they said their soul in order to fit in. But Odinga never sold his soul. He never sold his people. He would always endeavor the principles, the morals, the values that he represented were for building Kenya. And that's where he becomes a nationalist, and he's East Africaner, he's a regionalist, and a Pan-Africanist. So repressing him, as we are saying, I think, well, always a leader will emerge. They would always that say a leader will emerge. The Baganda say awakura enumite wakura emu. There will be somebody, a leader will emerge. But to us as a generation, it teaches a lot. And not only a generation, I think to home regime, there's a lot we have to learn from how we should be treating the opposition.
Okay.
Not
All right,
treating
we'll be
them
coming
as
to
enemies,
that. Yeah.
but treating them as nation builders
Yes.
who have a contribution to building the nation, and then give him a space, and there is
Honorable Henry,
cooperation.
we'll come back to that lesson that you're trying to preempt, but you have mentioned of him as a building block of where
Yes.
Kenya is today. Let's talk about one of the building blocks that he had, the 2010 Constitution, where he was one of the frontiers of the making of the 2010 Constitutions. It had elements as such as the independence of the judiciary. It had elements, checks on the presidency, and then the freedoms of the citizens, devolution, to mention but a few. Dr. Robert Ujambo, as a political scientist and scholar of regional politics, when we reflect back on his influence when it comes to that constitution that is now running 15 years and counting, how do you assess the reforms that came through that constitution and how they have performed largely when it comes to the landscape of better politics, democracy, and governance for Kenya?
Thank you
As
very
they were
much.
originally
Thank you very
intended.
much, Priscilla. Let me first say a few sentences before I come to that question. Raila was an enigma. He's called Baba for a reason. I think in Africa, he's one, if not very few, sons of big people, vice president, to have reached and almost surpassed his father's influence. His father was Oginga Odinga. That man never gave Christian names to his children, so Raila does not have a Christian name. But recently, the ODM named him Joshua. They just forced because of the influence of Christianity in Kenya. And he was a true Pan-Africanist, a believer in Luo tradition. He went to school. He can surprise you. He had a master's in mechanical engineering from West German. He taught at Nairobi University as a lecturer for some time. He was an astute businessman. And what surprises you that all those privileges he associated with the common man in Kariako, in Kirinyaga, in Kisumu, or in any other place. Of course, because of the poor leadership of many Ugandans, they have looked at him from an ethnic background. Raila transcended that. For example, Raila would become an MP in Mombasa or in Narok, because the most times he was an MP, he was an MP in Langata. In Langata, and when you go to Langata, it is a cosmopolitan area. In fact, majority of the people there are Kikuyu. Raila has worked with all governments that have been in Kenya, beginning with of course, as I told you, up to 1978, he was teaching at the university, but later he starts his movement with his father, and later he's arrested. He's arrested and spent 6 years in committee. Being in committee is like, which prison here? If they took you to Machindia, maybe. Committee is a very bad prison. It's a national prison, but very many people lost life in committee, including his father was in committee, and so many politicians lost life in committee prison. And once Raila walked out of committee alive, people knew that this man has passed the test. And then he became MP, and later he got problems, and he went to exile in Norway. He spent there 1 year. He came back, and as an MP, he was the voice of the voiceless. Because remember, that was Moi's government, and Moi's government was one of the bad governments in Africa. Because I grew up during that period, and I have never seen a leader like Moi, a leader like Mobutu, a leader like Kamuzu Banda, a leader like Shombe, and many others. Others are still living. I don't want to mention them. So because of that, Raila, there is a way he connected with the political class, the elite, and the common people. He was a man who transcended all the classes in society. That when he was with the political class of Kenya, and in Kenya they really have a political class. It's not like Uganda here where we have gamblers in politics.
Kunkumula.
They have a political class to an extent that in Kenya it is very easy to close your eyes and you can name a presidential candidate. Kalonzo, this one, Kenyatta. It's very easy. Here it is difficult. And you can name, they know the caliber of people who can become MP. So because of that, Raila has been between the street, the parliament, and the flamboyant places to discuss politics. One morning he's on the street, in the afternoon he's in parliament, in the evening he's discussing with the political class. So that is Baba for you. He has been given a lot of names. By the way, he has Baba, he has Agwambo, he has Tinga, he has many names. And these names would show that whatever Raila touched, he cannot fail. The only thing he has failed is to become president of Kenya.
On to the
In
constitution.
fact, I want
For
now
ti-
to
for
come to
time's
the
sake.
constitution. I want to come to the constitution. Raila had become an institution. In Kenya, they say in Uganda we have three arms of government. We have the judiciary, we have the legislature, we have the executive. In Kenya, they have all the three. And the fourth arm of government was Raila. That was an arm of government that if you have not dealt with it properly, you cannot. So the constitution came after a number of coalitions, unsuccessful coalitions, beginning with Moi. He joined the KANU and became the general secretary of KANU. He did not succeed. Later, Moi left, joined Kibaki. They worked for some time. He even became a prime minister. He didn't succeed. Kenyatta came, Kenyatta now Uhuru. He worked with him. He didn't succeed. And it was then, when Kibaki was almost leaving, that they came up with an idea of having a new constitution in 2008. In 2008, they thought that the constitution that was there was not helping them to grow democracy. So Raila proposed the idea of the new constitution. It was opposed by the Kibakis, the Kibaki group. They opposed it and they said it was not necessary. And even when they drafted the constitution, they were rejecting that it should not pass. Raila, using his power, muzzled the support, and the constitution was approved in 2010. Now, I just want to speak a few things about this constitution, what it introduced in Kenya, and therefore, which are going to be the legacy of Raila forever. Number one, it strengthened the Majimbo government. Majimbo is like local government or decentralization. Devolution, that is the word, thank you. So for them, they were a little bit careful. They divided Kenya into 47 counties. The constitution divides Kenya into 47 counties. And those counties are self-governing with a governor. They have their financial budget, they have their own money, and they have their own senate. And that has been, is one of the very good things that have happened for Kenya. So much so that now very few things go to Nairobi. Many things are solved in Siaya, in Kisumu, in all those other counties, Tharaka Nithi, and many other counties. So that is one thing that has helped. The constitution, Raila is a man of coalitions. He liked almost working with the people and forming a coalition. He always found a solution wherever there is a problem. So their constitution came out very clearly on to describe how that can happen. That political parties can come together and sign memoranda or other methods of understanding, and those things are registered and respected. And that's why you see in Kenya, you do not have, at least now for the last 3 presidents, in fact, yeah, Kibaki, Uhuru, and now Ruto, they are not under one party. They are under coalitions. Remember last time it was NAC that brought Kibaki, then Jubilee brought Uhuru, and now this other thing, Kenya Kwanza,
Okay.
which has brought. So that's another element that in the constitution that is very, very important. The other thing in the constitution, which they introduced in the constitution, is to reduce the power of the president. Unlike Uganda here, where the president, the only people who matter, he does not appoint bishops. In Kenya, many offices are not appointed by the president. For example, the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commission, there is a system which has been put in the constitution where they get the Electoral Commission through party representatives, some bit of commission. So they get a person who they agree in. Of course, and that's why you see their Electoral Commission is not unanimous like ours. The last thing that that constitution helps, it has shaped Kenya's democracy. Freedom of speech. In Kenya, if you want to know, that's where there is a freedom of speech now in East Africa. People can demonstrate. You look at their elections, when they are carrying out election, it is open. People can gather and discuss and disagree with the Ruto. Of course, people who are conscious, like Major there, will say, but it brings chaos. But that is what democracy is all about. So there is freedom of speech. Of course, now in countries like Tanzania, now you cannot speak anyhow and spend a night in your house. You are seeing how they are haunting former ministers. There is, in fact, one who has disappeared, Honorable Pole Pole. In Uganda, I don't want to speak about it because we live with it. But in Kenya, there is they allow people to say whatever they want, and if you want to challenge somebody, you go to that opening and challenge him, and that's why Ruto may be facing that problem. So
allow
all
me to
in
take
all,
away your freedom of speech right there and move to Honorable Musumba.
okay.
When we look to the ODM, this is a founding figure of ODM, a very strong-rooted party in opposition for Kenya's politics. Now, without its strong founding stone, what does ODM's future look like, especially in Kenya's opposition stance?
Well, ODM is secure. It has internal security. It has internal political maturity. It is viable. It is competitive. It has organizational competence. And no single fool will wake up and run away with it the way they ran away with FDC. Not a single fool will walk away with it and walk the streets. No. And that security comes from, one, the characters in it. They are fire tested, and they know the consequences. And their consequences are immediate. Ours are maybe long term. There are also consequences in our situation. ODM is organizationally stable. And it has a pool of leaders, of men. Let me first talk of men. You know, this planet, particularly this continent, but this country, suffers from a lack of men.
And women.
You have boys.
Real men.
Real men are rare. A man who will say his mind in the morning and be the same at lunchtime and in the evening. They are very rare. And when you find one here, you must respect them. Yes, women too. They have strong women. You see, the gender balance has been introduced in such that it is a conflict-prone thing. You know, people, instead of synergies, that, in my experience, has just created conflict.
Okay.
You know? And so I do not see that as a risk within ODM.
All right.
That everybody is occupying the space they should and working best in that space to create the aggregated good.
All right.
So it's good to go.
All right. Joseph, Uganda People's Congress is one that has tried to have coalitions and cooperations over different cycles for us here in Uganda. So just as one who has been part of those intentions, how do you make of the power of coalition when we reflect on the journey of Raila Odinga and how influential and effective and efficient in delivery the power and tool of coalition he used to actually sustain democracy in Kenya?
Coalitions are imperative, and coalitions are powerful, and coalitions are maturity. In fact, coalitions and ability to deliver and to be part of an organized and decent coalition, like Henry seemed to suggest, is leadership. The only thing that is that here in Uganda, we lack that. And the only thing is that here in Uganda, we've got co-options, not coalition thoughts. And yes, of course, I'm very proud to associate with the political party that first brought in the coalition debate, very voluntarily. In fact, for us, it was more than coalition. At independence, we won the elections, and then we decided to have a government of national unity. If only really, sometimes I gently pray about this, Priscilla. If only that government of national unity worked.
So, what lessons can leaders pick from
I'm bringing
that?
it to that. You know, if only that worked. DP refused to join the government of national unity, and so we ended up with a coalition KY UPC, and historically it has been presented as maybe a deal between two, basically, to put aside DP. It was not true. So in principle, our founding independence parents pushed for that. Why you link that fast forward to where we are with Raila? Ability really to talk to your opponent, ability to talk to your enemy, being a good winner, but also being a good loser. Where in Raila's case, authoritatively Raila won two elections.
Political decency.
Won 2 elections. But this is the guy who was able to hold back and simply see, in the best interest of my party and my country and our peoples, we let go. That's extremely important. With the huge implication. One of, I don't know whether I said it earlier, one of Raila's key aides told me earlier this year, a young she, that she had huge hate for a particular individual on the other. And that because of her strategic role, you know, with the Raila team, she had to engage with these people. And she's a young person, like maybe like little daughter that we're trying to engage and encourage. All of us
to mentor.
We continue to mentor and support. And this guy had to call her and say, he talked me through this process and I left a different person. This is the living thing, reality. So that then is the real Raila. But I think something else which has been brought into this is not tongue-in-cheek in context of Uganda, but a fact that in Kenya, partly because KANU was really never NRA. KANU was an independence government that went on to become a dictatorship by Kenyatta and Moi. And once these heavy guys basically came to push, and particularly Raila's dad, I remember after my O-level, I spent my early O-level waiting for my results, by the way, from Kenya. And the only person in the position who would talk was Jaramogi. and it was an extraordinary thing. So they broke this, but they broke the monolithic one-party system, where the reality then came that you realize that we are parties, whether you like it or not, we're in the same house together.
And
that sort of is partly the missing link in Uganda, where the guys in charge think they can continue with the impunity. And that sort of is the difference.
Yeah.
But I want to insist this, I know partly because of time, Priscilla, that whereas it is the case that it goes both ways, you really need to have an enabling environment for us to be able to do this.
All right.
So the Kenyans sort of have done that. And if you're asking me about whether or not there are lessons we can learn from Uganda, yes, we are, except the field is different. But just quickly to say that for the Kenyan ODM guys, actually the chairperson of ODM is an extremely competent lady governor of Homa Bay. And if you see where sort of they are as a political party, I think they're fairly quite secure. Okay. I am genuinely still concerned that post Raila in this kind of situation, and the kind of anger that you see in the streets, whether or not we can rest, interned Raila, and then there's a new climate of brother and sisterhoodness in Kenya that drives people beyond this to learn lessons from Raila for them to build their
Okay,
nation state.
we'll be watching the events as they're unfolding. Of course, we've seen the chaos that's happened since
There is
yesterday
not
and
chaos.
today.
That is the love.
That's
They are
that's
mourning.
love.
It's not chaos.
Okay, all right.
It's love. I mean,
So-
people don't know how to deal with this
Yeah,
grief.
yeah.
They're
Okay.
not a danger to themselves. That's the best way they know
That's
how
the
to
best way they
grieve.
know
They're
how
in
to
shock.
do so.
So
All right.
it's not chaos.
They're mourning
We've
their
seen
loved
scenes
one.
of people rolling themselves on the streets, on the ground.
It's going to be worse.
Carrying branches of trees, and it's going to be
It's
worse.
going
That
to be
is
worse,
very
and
true.
prepare for
Until
it.
we can have him,
They're mourning him
with the state
on
viewing
Magufuli
in
style.
Karasani Stadium. All right. So as we are coming to the end of this conversation, Honorable Henry, you were talking about lessons earlier, and would like you to amplify those lessons right now in a minute.
Well, I had earlier talked about the kind of political maturity that Raila embodied. And I was also saying that the environment in which he exercised that political maturity was enabling. There was an enabling kind of environment. And that's what we need here in Uganda. When you see what is happening today, there is something seeming so, but it is half the way. I saw the other day on national prayers where my brother, Colonel Samson Mande, was being welcomed, and Gwakasisi was also giving a lesson, and the issue was reconciliation. But why it is halfway is that why would you be glorifying that kind of reconciliation when our brother Besigye is rotting in Ruzira? Why on that day, if they had brought Besigye there and President Museveni saw that whatever was in between me and you,
That's very interesting.
I put it behind, forgive me, also I forgive you.
Okay.
So that kind of the reconciliation we need, and that's the lesson that we need to have here. Because I believe that if we to exercise political maturity of that kind of nature, the epitome of political maturity is to see Besigye sitting on the same table with Museveni and other opposition leaders and discussing the issues of the national coalition that we are talking about, because that is the political maturity, the reconciliation at the epitome of reconciliation in this Uganda.
Okay, speaking of President Museveni, Major Awich, I would like to conclude with you. President Museveni, the National Resistance Movement, all for Pan-Africanism. This is a man that really, truly identified as a Pan-African. I want you to close with some of the lessons that can be picked as a Pan-Africanist, looking at his Pan-African influence as well as the continental influence.
With Raila's death? Yes, of course. We can pick lesson from how Raila had seen it in his lenses, the Pan-Africanist attitude in him, and the attributes that he portrayed. We learn from it. And also we can learn the Pan-Africanist spirit in that even where there are discrepancies or there are disagreements, it should be brought to a close. And that's when I say that between Museveni and Raila, at the end of it, it was closed, and Museveni campaigned for him. He really supported this candidature at African Union. So that is the Pan-Africanist spirit. But also, I think, in the bid to close up the economic aspect, Raila was also a capitalist, for want of words, and he's the one who believed in African markets because he wasn't a poor man, so he was also quite alive to market strategies, and that clearly resonates well with the Pan-African spirit. So by large and far, is that we really have a lot of lessons to learn from his life, as I said, in the resolution of conflicts, in the Pan-African spirit, in the economic aspect, and in the political interpretation of events that should be interpreted from the lenses of Africa.
All right.
Now, Priscilla, just one statement on these lessons. One thing about Raila, he really read the situations right. I would just want to give you 2 examples. When General Gola died, there was a lot of malice associated to his death. And the day of his burial in Siaya, Raila did not appear. He didn't come for the burial. And many people wondered why and how. Why did this guy come? Not come. Later I got to learn that if Raila had been on that burial, it would have caused commotion, because people would want to tell him, to want to hear from him what the Luo are going to do about the loss of their son, whom they thought that had died suspiciously. The second example is the recent coalition where he has been working with Ruto. And there has been a very big rift in ODM, whereby there are some members of ODM who didn't like him to participate in that government. Of course, there are others who have joined. More specifically, too, the General Secretary of ODM, that young man, Sifuna, has been preaching against this coalition. And Raila was put in a very tight situation. How do you explain? Raila told the Kenyans that, please listen to Sifuna. Sifuna is saying a right thing, but what I'm telling you is the best, because for me, I want unity. Sifuna is speaking for ODM, and I want to get out of ODM. Then there is a young man called Babu Owino, who has become a very big problem in ODM. Raila also has studied this man very well and treated him. They thought that he was going to expel him from ODM because the man even tried to form his own party. He has ignored him.
Thank you
and
so
the whole
much,
thing
Dr.
has
Robert.
kept quiet.
And now we all understand why he earned himself the title and the name Baba, meaning father, from 1945 to 2025. That's the man, and that's his legacy, a legacy of influence that spans beyond his territory and influences the rest of us, even as we're seated in this room. May his soul rest in peace. His story is inseparable from Kenya's democratic journey, a life defined by endurance, reform, and reconciliation. Now, as a region, we reflect on his passing, but at the same time, the question now remains on whether his ideals can outlive his era and inspire a new generation of leaders. Raila Amolo Odinga. That brings us to the end of the first part of the Citizens Chat show, and we'll be coming back right after this.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
The Citizens Chat show does continue, and thank you so much for being with us. I am Priscilla Regina Dalwoga, continuing on with the moderations for today. Current affairs. We are done and dusted with a legacy that is ending, and now we're picking up on unending legacies here on the chat. Now, in a major political development in the last 24 hours ahead of the 2026 general elections, at least 9 political parties have formed a coalition to back President Yoweri Museveni, the incumbent, being re-elected in 2026. Now, the leaders of these political parties did meet the Prime Minister, Robina Nabbanja, and they are of the understanding, citing that the president's contribution to Uganda's development as a key reason for their backing him in 2026. This coalition includes parties such as the Republic, Women and Youth Party, the Liberal Democratic Transparency, National Economic Empowerment Dialogue, and the Revolutionary People's Party. These are among the 9 political parties. Now, Honorable Godfrey Chiwanda chaired this arrangement, and of course the National Consultative Council highlighting the need for the increase in funding so that they can enable the forum to carry out its constitutional mandate. I already hear voices. Now, let's get the reactions on camera. I'll start with you, Honorable Henry. You're the first to. What are you about?
Because you are reading parties I've never had. So the way you are reading them, I was telling her, it sounds like, what is this thing, the theater thing? National Theatre.
Comedy.
It's
Night.
like you are mentioning comedians.
They are there, according to the Electoral Commission.
Let me be very
There's over
honest.
30 political
Let me
parties
be very
registered
honest,
with the Electoral Commission.
Here
Bogus.
today,
Yeah.
and
Parties.
then NRM today, and no party the other day. But as in these are just comedians. NRM is NRM. And you cannot, the Museveni I know, he cannot even participate in this Katemba. Have you heard that it was Museveni who has chaired it? Have you heard that it's Museveni who has received them? It has to be my brother Subi Chiwanda.
Okay.
So this is
Doing his thing.
Yeah, he pretending sing. This is sing. NRM is NRM. Museveni does not need these people. Museveni does not need these people.
Okay, if it's not Museveni, that's the party.
If you had told me that it was Salama Musumba, PFF, the other thing I was talking about,
You'd clap.
it was Nani, VSJ as reading PFF, and
You would have something to discuss.
Yes, I would say yes.
All right.
But these are the other ones we are talking about.
Honorable Salam, what's your comment on this?
Really, it's laughable. And it confirms what we have long held, that these,
Small.
they are not even small parties. They are handbag parties, the briefcase parties that exist on the books with no returns to the Electoral Commission for the last 20 years. A fabrication of the NRM.
Salama, I can tell you, whoever has forged this comedian kind of show, he just want to steal Museveni's money, NRM's money, to say semblance,
Which is effectively our money
give him
anyway.
100, give him what, give him $1 billion, and at the end of the day, they share the root.
What's the mandate of the National Consultative Forum?
You see,
we're just interrogating it to see how it
let's
ties
be
in.
honest.
This gutter politics we are engaged in, gutter politics, is a danger to the nation.
My brother Chiwanda must be $1 billion richer today.
I'll tell you something. This is sick. This is sickening. That a group of people that put their lives on the line to fight for democracy, as they describe it, to descend into this level of bull nankan is pathetic. It's not even annoying. It's beyond that.
Okay.
Because let me tell you, there's that party you first read is what? That Mogisugal.
Which one?
Just a busybody running all over the place, for years.
Yes, talking about Stella Bira.
And so you have political hawkers on the block, political hawkers, official political hawkers on the books. Electoral Commission is sleeping on the job. And it has just created a disaster for an entire nation.
Okay, all right.
Because this is,
Dr.
that
Robert,
is totally bogus.
Dr. Robert, maybe you could have some positive outlook to this information.
You know, I was discussing recently with a friend of mine, and he told me that the political period has come for us to do something. In the country now, people are unemployed, the businesses are not doing well, agriculture, because of the weather, has collapsed. So the only thing that has remained that you can run around with and trade is politics. And they have discovered that NRM and the president are the money bags. And when you associate with them, you get something to eat. You remember Chiwanda tried with his Rolex exhibitions. They did not go anywhere. He tried to become the the chairperson, the member of Uganda. It does not work. So they just want to keep themselves relevant and getting something. There would have been a very huge say if, for example, there was a coalition between the 8 candidates who have registered for presidency. And they announced that now Mabirizi, and sorry for mentioning Mabirizi, Mabirizi is campaigning on their own, or any candidate there says now, I am Jisha Muntu, that I am now making a coalition with the president to compete with the other people. These other people, including DP, it's because they could not go anywhere. It's like somebody reaching somewhere and your vehicle gets a puncture, and you have to continue with your journey. Then you board the vehicle of your colleague.
The tractor.
The vehicle of your colleague. It's not because you love him or her. It's not because you want to work with them and travel with them. It's because of the puncture of the vehicle. But nonetheless, we wish them well. These are political parties who don't have, I don't know any of their leaders. I don't know whether they are going to feel.
You know the leader of Need, Joseph Kabuleta,
was just away.
Hey, Joseph is part of
Joseph Kabuleta was just away. Now it is a different person. I'll give you as I end. You remember this peasant party, which has fielded a candidate in the presidential election. As they were nominating the peasant party candidate in that place in Luweza, the president of the peasant party was dancing from 7 in Kololo. These are the type of parties that we have here. That musician boss was dancing for the president in Kololo. So if you look at that and you want us to discuss them as political parties, really it is demanding a lot from us. But for me, I think these are handbag associations for which now are being traded in politics to get something. They don't have a lot of impact.
Let me go to Joseph there. Comrades here disappointed that the parties that we're even referring to do not command the voice of the people. They do not command the masses that should be worthy of having a table of negotiation and coalition such as expected, quote unquote. And so it begs the question, is this for survival or is it ideological alignment that they're trying to look for? Also, I'd allow me to ask you to frame it in such a way as looking to the DP right now and the UPC, who have already existing, working relations with the ruling party, in terms of maybe these parties are expecting that in the near future, should the NRM retain power, they could get some positions,
Oh, that they would get RDC positions because in DPs they get hired.
DPs, the minister in UPC.
No, you preempted me in a way that you're being very unkind to NRA. NRA is in big things, My brother Norbert Mao told you that there is a coalition of the willing. these briefcase guys couldn't wait, so they had to join the table. So there's already an established coalition of the willing that Nova talked about, and that coalition includes his own DP. But unfortunately for him, in UPC, it does not include myself because I'm the president of Uganda People's Congress. It includes individuals in UPC who've been very comfortable dining with the guys at the top. But unfortunately, whatever they're eating from our national coffers. Interestingly, the two coalitions, one thing that I'll take us back, interestingly, to Raila, but to make of interest, that apparently I got somebody from actually Rutu territory, someone with whom we did some research work some ages ago, and was telling me that the Raila deals tend to be genuine, real deals. That unlike the money that we nearly ended up talking the last end of the conversation, that it is about jobs, but it's also about issues. That do you agree that the pending Hoima Stadium must be completed but using locally generated resources? Do you agree that if we do this as part of the deal, Pineti should be brought to trial? Things like that. And then how many citizens do we bring? Number two. But then number three, this individual also told me, somebody from Rift Valley, told me that apparently Raila nearly had issues with some of his Luo Nyanza people. That's why it's important, this identity question.
Bring it back home.
No, I'm contextualizing it because that in terms of the listings of those key positions, people from Luo Nyanza were saying that he was giving it to other people, some of the kind of things that Salam was talking about. Now that is coalition, in a way. You may not like, that is coalition. But then when you bring it home here, it is quite clearly the group of people who are basically pushing very dubiously dangerous agenda. I think these guys should be called mafias. And I think a future UPC government should formally launch an investigation to establish how public money has been used by both sides, the recipients and the people who give. Let alone the fact that now when you jump from that and then you come to the much more serious coalition of the willing group that it now includes my party's name, which, as I said, I withdrew from there. It is the case that I don't know which direction this election this time is going to take. I think the Maos have choreographed it quite well, because I saw some clip earlier in the day, I think, but I think I was in a slightly different mood, where Mao suggests that, oh, we told you so. I think it was in Uganda. We told you so. You've not seen any tear gas. So meaning that we are really managing it well. But managing an election process, or managing something that has been so well designed that it must end in an Enery court victory, and the group of the coalition of the willing, plus this briefcase of people,
Okay. All right.
to earn a living at the expense of our people. Very sad in 30 seconds that my party is not there, but also that some of the parties that would otherwise have been there, including representation by women in terms of candidates. I'm not quite sure whether we're going to be discussing really substantive policy issues. For my sister who's got a relation with a party that is campaigning, where ideological issues, where there are big issues of corruption being discussed genuinely, where are big issues of the fact that we can actually be going through campaigns as if it's business as usual.
And your 30 seconds are over. Let me talk to you, Labour here.
In jail and...
Yes. Honorable Salam Musumba, still around that, but now focusing on PFF. I know that in recent weeks you have had conversations with the ANT to try to see how you can work together as the other parties on this race for 2026 general elections and beyond. And in one of those, also as PFF, you had committed to the public and the masses that without presenting your own presidential candidate, you'll be backing up another presidential candidate. Talk to us about those two issues.
Yes, we made a choice not to present a presidential candidate for purposes of easing
So who's your candidate now?
the choice for a joint candidate. Because in the past we've been described as the obstruction. And so we left the space for that to happen.
That's interesting, actually.
Okay? And so that the public is able to understand that we desperately are looking for a candidate, a single candidate, to deliver this country.
So who's your candidate now?
We are discussing with two parties that have presented candidates, the Alliance for National Transformation and the National Unity Platform. And those conversations are ongoing. One, for us to be able to counter the threat that faces this country in its face, the one called succession and another one called longevity. And within an environment of pent-up anger, frustration, and disgust. And so we are managing so many things, and I really must thank Mao for his big mouth, which doesn't keep anything. He spews things that very, very sophisticated statesmen don't. The statecraft doesn't allow you to do certain things. But this rural excitement, you know, he's still caught up in campus politics. I said it fast, I talked it fast, that kind of cajoling.
Okay.
And so
as you continue with your submission,
we are happy
yes,
to see that he is engineering the collapse of democracy.
Okay, as you're continuing with your conversation, Honorable Salam, allow me to interrogate a little bit further on the continued talks that you state. We are now into the third week of the presidential campaigns, and one wonders, are there two options on the table for the PFF? Either to actually not even back up a presidential candidate for this upcoming race, or to make that decision. And if to make the decision, when will the decision be made? Because time is of the essence, and it's very critical.
This country is not going away.
It's not going away, but the election cycle is going away.
The election cycle is just within our control, because we know the timelines, we know what to do when, and our supporters, we have advised them to watch the space, because you ain't seen nothing yet.
So what's the timeline for the PFF to make that decision?
The timeline, look at December.
Okay.
Look at December,
right.
As things evolve, and because you see, we don't want to obstruct you. We want to see the full unveiling of tragedy.
Okay.
Political tragedy.
Looking at other political parties, Dr. Robert here, anything that is made of flour ideally must crumble, or there must be some crumbles that fall off: a cake, a bread, a biscuit, a cookie. And so we're seeing a lot of crumbling in the other parties that are participating in this election race and cycle. Divisions have become divisions. They have birthed PFF among other political parties. Is this really the democracy that we should be having if we are looking to a country that should be preparing itself for transition?
We started our debate here with Kenya, and we are very contrasting in many things. In Kenya, normally people come together to form a government, and the other party that is the other group that is divided also comes together to form the opposition. Here the trouble is that the environment that has been created makes elections to be an event. It's not a process. People just wake up in the morning and they start dreaming, where should I stand? How should I come on board? And because of that, it creates a very funny situation, and that's why we have reached where we are. For example, in the last 5 years after the elections that ended in January 2021, the country was so fractured. You know, a country which organizes an election and more than 50 people die on the streets of that country, and hundreds end up in prison, some never to be seen again. Then the soldiers patrol the streets on a daily basis for the next 5 years, even attacking the political parties' offices, sometimes arresting the political party leaders, openly hearing that we are going to buy this group and they join us, and indeed you see them being bought and they join. It is a country that really sometimes, for some of us who teach history, wonder, how are you going to write this type of history? And for who to read? Because even we may find no people to read this type of history.
Yeah.
So you find, for example, instead of DP organizing itself to prepare for an election in 2026, the DP disorganizes itself, and they cannot even carry out an election. They go and do a mockery in Mbarara, which every local citizen sees that it is not an election. And the man walks back to Kampala that I'm the president of DP.
And he walks straight to Matters Day celebration.
We had hope.
I was mad.
We had hope. Of course, Islam, I stay in Namugongo. Don't trust those people who walk those places. Look at what they do. We had a lot of hope in the FDC. A lot of hope. It was like the beacon of the country under the leadership of Kiza Besigye. It gave some of us hope, young people hope, that yes, we are going to have now a new Uganda. Something happened in FDC, and the whole party just went in disarray. Some two gentlemen there are acting like comedians. You don't even understand what they are doing, and that is what birthed the PFF. And it would be really demanding too much that you want PFF to begin in May. Did you begin in May?
June.
In June, and have a presidential candidate. Really, that would not happen. UPC, I don't want to comment about it because my friend Ocheno is here, but UPC has been another disappointment. But remember, attach all this to the environment that I started with. Now, that's why you see these small things emerging, that they are political parties. For me, I think we need to go back to the drawing board and determine how we want to move in this country. If this country, the leaders want us to be a dictatorship, let them just announce and we leave everything. People go and do their business. The money which is wasted on these elections is used to do infrastructure and other things. Because if you have seen the election, now the competition has remained for two. That is how I'm seeing things. And if somebody blames me, that is their problem. There is NRM, which started their journey going northward, and NOP that started their journey going eastward. These are the 6 parties. They are like comedians walking around town, greeting children in the market. They don't have rallies. They are just moving around and saying almost nothing. So you don't see anything. But for these two, they have tried, NRM and NOP. They have a manifesto which they launched, each one of them. The other competitors have no manifestos. I don't know whether... I have not heard.
If this has a manifesto.
NT launched its manifesto.
NT launched a manifesto. FDC launched a manifesto, yes. But you follow them. Are they talking about the manifesto? They don't have even anybody to speak to. They are speaking maybe to the TVs. I have heard even some are saying how they are going to abolish some languages. Do you want to call that a manifesto? That they are going to abolish a language which people speak, so that you kill the people who speak that language? So I really think...
That's why the other day I was arguing that what matters is the national development plan.
No.
So what I think, Priscilla...
Let's allow Dr. Robert finish his point.
What I think, Priscilla, let this election end. It is not going to take us anywhere, because the political participants in this country, I think majority of them were not ready for this election.
That's why I want to bring
And why they were not ready for this election was because of the environment that was created. People have been running around.
Political party readiness and currently presidential candidates' readiness to be on the course. 90 days they have been given by the Electoral Commission to traverse all the regions of the country and tell their people what their manifestos are, quote unquote. But already we're seeing issues. One, with security. Two, with campaign financing. Mubarak Munyagwa, Common Man's Party, has already stated that he has enough
have
funds to
more
run him
holidays
maybe
than-
another 2 weeks and he'll be out of the race financially. You do see Mugisha Muntu passing on pledge cards while he's engaging with people so that they can be a social funding for him to continue on his campaign trail. The others are equally also saying that they cannot compete against the ruling party using state resources to go across the country to campaign.
So what
Comment. Yes.
comment on?
Yes.
Number one, you are talking about financing. Of course, when you look at when I begin with NRM, which is the party in power, the machinery, the financing, it is all state financing, which is because the president has not bought himself a car, neither has he bought anything. He's using his convoy. He's using his own convoy, using a state presidential chopper, and he's using all the state machinery. So that is given, and in the eyes of the public and the voters, it is okay. Because President Museveni goes as President Museveni, not as a candidate. And when he goes on the ladder, he's explaining what is the achievements of the NRM government and the plans of the NRM government. So it is understandable. And
I hear you.
and when it comes to my other parties, of course, where they can't get resources, they don't have accessibility to state resources. So how do you expect, where do they get the resources? And again, of course, the institutional governance of our political parties, you know, it's not there. It is not there. It's not there to talk about that the UPC members, you know, PFF, it is just the elites who come together and say, we have formed a party. PFF is not rooted from the masses.
How do you know?
I know. You let me submit, you will submit. At least
But
UPC
see,
had
when
that
you
opportunity
mislead,
of UPC everywhere. It was grassroots rooted. But of course, you know, I wish you well, PFF. I wish you very well. And I love you because of the intellectuality that you bring in. But your intellectuality have not convinced my rural mother and father
well,
from Rwanda.
I have an MP
You have a long way to go.
from the municipality of Kabale. You know that?
Kamara.
Yes, Dr. Kamara Tadeus. Nicholas.
Honest truth
Yes.
is Kamara in Kabale as a candidate for member of parliament for Kabale. It is Catholics versus Protestants.
Which is okay.
Unfortunately,
Which is okay.
our politics in Kigeza has descended that
And
way.
that is fine.
All right, Honorable Henry, bring it back to your comments.
Yeah, Kamara is a Catholic. He's a candidate for the Catholics.
And that is
And
good.
then the Anglicans
And we
will
will
also have their
serve them.
candidate. So the fight,
dynamics.
the dynamics,
The political dynamics are
determined by-
religious.
There's more
Which is
dynamics
okay.
we need to address
So now
here than
what are we
the
talking
political
about?
party divisions.
Grassroots based parties that are mobilized from the grassroots. It's not there.
Okay. Joseph,
So
with
because
what
of that, it's
already has
lacking.
transpired
And that's what we are talking
on
about.
this table, small as it is,
Raila Odinga.
you can
Let
see
me
that
finish
we have...
this. Raila Odinga.
yeah.
Because you can see Raila Odinga was rooted in the masses.
Okay.
Actually,
what
that
needs
is
to
why,
be rooted in
why,
the masses, Joseph?
why PFF
They have referred to UPC as one of those grassroots parties.
at one
But
time.
now we're seeing division at political party level. We're seeing division now at religious element that has been brought in here. There's the cultural divides, there's the regional divides to mention, but so many things that divide a vote in today's age of political democracy for us as a country. Even manifestos, one wonders, do manifestos even really matter at
They
such a time
don't.
as this, Joseph?
I think I'll use UPC as a matter of interest. We're actually quite rooted but thin. Henry, I was recently in Western Uganda, I was in Kanunga, I was in Baranda, I met a number of people. And it's extraordinary the number of party members, and that pains me actually, the number of party members we've betrayed, particularly with the elites and the politics of the leadership at the top. But in terms of some of the things you refer, it's important. Our infrastructure has been left and lauded and confined, and the grassroots citizen membership have been left confined. So generally, our membership is actually predominantly on the bottom. But of course, at the top, we are busy battling for key positions in Uganda House and who's who, generally. But of course, you gave us credit, but in part because we are the established political party, we are the oldest, we are the most experienced, and indeed we've gone to the infrastructure, we formed governments. NRA came to try and kill us, so that's why they failed. Now, in terms of what has happened and led to where we are, I think even as we're discussing these briefcase parties, we've not actually held NRA that responsible. The pinch that they pumped onto established political parties, including like UPC, compromising leaders at specific levels, up to and including the question in FDC. And indeed, as Dr. Jambo was saying, I think 15 years ago, it would be very difficult for anybody to believe that anybody in FDC could have any associations with NRA, regardless of their old historical links that some of the founding members were formerly members of NRA. But sort of that's what happened. So maybe that's the credit we should give to Comrade Museveni and his establishment. And I know that they continue, even as we talk, trying to pull members from various political organizations, including my own. And I know where some of this conversation continue. And you wonder, these guys are such that they're such terrible winners. They want to grab everything. Because sometimes you see, why is it that NRA wants it so much that they would want to pick up anything? But Priscilla, maybe it tells me of an experience I had recently, okay, that was actually last year, where I was passing by Mukono, and a retired doctor with the UN agency was telling me that, oh, that property there belongs to belongs to a certain ordinary Muganda woman that had been grabbed by a particular major national NRA person. And then I was driving, and I really was not particularly interested in political conversation at that time. And then he said, I can't understand these people, particularly that individual with a huge amount of money, huge amount of wealth, a very big national name. Why would he still go ahead and want to grab that tiny little crooked plot of an average? So that's sort of what these guys are all about. But then comes to the other political parties like PFF and others, say, including actually NUP, for a country which has had a monolithic control of power and privilege over 40 years. Dr. Ojambo was talking about the Kenyan thing, about the Kenyan elite and middle classes and things like that, which is quite developed, which ours is not. It's not easy. And number two, to find a situation in which politics has been so monetized and weaponized, and money weaponized, poverty politicized and weaponized, and public services completely dead. It is so tempting and so difficult that you find a situation that, now you begin with campaigns. Even within the last 1 hour, even I still go ahead and get notices from people who all of a sudden recognize that they're there because they want money for nomination. So it's that bad. So in such a situation, it's not really easy for established political parties. But in a way, Salama, I'll say this to you. I actually hold fairly strong views that political parties, and I told Mugisha Muntu this once upon a time, that it should really about leadership and values rather than personalities. Now, granted, we don't want to go into that at the moment. Where political parties have emerged and done what Henry is saying, that where are they at the grassroots? Okay. At what stage are we founded? At what stage do we establish our identities? At what stage do we have leaders that are actually credible men and women on top? And at what stage then do we begin to resonate with the average citizen, actually, average urbanized citizens? Okay. And at what stage do we go ahead and set up our structures on the grassroots?
This is why I would like to bring in Honorable Salam.
I know, if you don't mind. I don't think we've had the opportunity, side by versus an NRM, where Mr. Museveni campaigns from day one after breaking up people's necks in the previous election, and then they continue for 5 years.
Honorable Salam, you've had Joseph's submission, and from what he has submitted, just allow me to finish. When you hear what he has submitted, it more or less sounds like slowly but surely, and seen to the common man's eye, there's a shrinking space for multi-partisan democracy in Uganda. What do you say on that?
Well, as a country, we are going through a slow death, a choreographed death path, because what has preoccupied NRM and President Museveni is to weaken leaders through all sorts of trickery, to weaken democracy and the search for it, to weaken political institutions and all other institutions, anything organized. You see, the Bush mentality in him is about destruction. You destroy and then you try to build. You destroy Uganda Airlines and then you replace it with Uganda Airlines. You destroy Uganda Railways, then you go back to Uganda Railways. You destroy parties, you abuse parties for years, DP and UPC, and then conquer them. You see? That cycle of destruction is a guerrilla DNA. And unfortunately, it doesn't go away quickly. We are going to have to pick up the political debris of 40 years of weakened institutions, weakened leaders, weakened societies. And then you expect that they will turn around and be viable economic institutions. They can't. You reap what you sow. And so if you have invested in weakening everything, there is no way you can turn around and then want to have strong economy.
Okay.
It doesn't work that way.
All right, Honorable Henry.
Unless you're looking for a miracle.
Yes.
Which doesn't happen these days.
Honorable Henry, there is a miracle. It's possible?
No, you see, when you look at, for example, why is NUP what it is today? Because NUP is translating itself into a mass party. And the reason NUP is translating into a mass party that it is because NUP has organically formed itself from the grassroots. People from the gutters, from the...
You have it wrong.
Yeah, let me submit.
I'm telling you.
You see, you follow their strategy. Then you will be successful.
Please continue.
And if I want
Mr.
to compare this, you
yeah.
see, NUP comes, its formation, the formation of NUP is from the lowest of the lowest person coming up together. And they all discover their fate and say, we need to get out of this. And then they have mobilized and they have come a force to reckon with. But you are saying that I have it wrong. I've told you I wish you well, but you cannot sit there in.
But let me tell you,
I could have been as well part of you because.
Honorable Salam, listen to your fellow honorable. No, before you can correct him.
Let him correct
I
him.
need to correct you.
Correct me.
But you see, you misrepresent NUP.
How?
NUP is an outcome of frustration, not out of organization.
Huh?
It's out of frustration,
Yes.
not out of organization.
Yes.
Okay?
Out of frustration.
They are organizing along the way as you go.
Out of frustration.
Out of frustration.
And who is the
cause of the frustration
who has the
is
best that are
the 40
frustrated?
years of NRM.
Let me tell you, okay, let me answer you back.
Yes.
Even NRM is a formation of out of frustration.
Correct.
You get?
Correct.
And
Even PFF is formed out of frustration.
PFF is also
It's
out
different.
of frustration, but from top, not from bottom.
Yes.
You get?
Yes.
And that's what makes the difference.
You see.
And that's what makes NUP mass. It is transforming into a mass party. And you, my sisters, and all you, my friends, you are at the top there.
So as we continue to see
and
this
you know,
divide,
let me first even tell him and give him
but quickly
kudos.
because my time is running.
You know that if you see through my head here and you read me, you know me and you, there's no difference. We breathe the same. That's why when I was in the parliament, I was a rebel leader, a rebel MP, because my thinking was not any difference from the opposition. Because wrong is wrong, but you are identifying that at that elitism.
You see,
And you have not brought this.
All right. Before Honorable,
we
just hold
Let
that
me
school
tell
of
you
thought.
something. We
Honorable,
have a
just
problem.
hold that school of thought. Dr. Robert here. With what we are seeing just on this table,
Adopt
imagine
that
what is
strategy
happening
will be
in
a
the
mass
masses.
party.
The voters who have today to see ANC today, they see NUP tomorrow. The other day they'll see NRM. The other day they'll see Peasants Party. Then Commons Party. All this is confusing them. What I want to understand. A manifesto is important to the voter, and two, when it comes to the realities on ground being different, and these 8 candidates promising a lot of things, how should a voter decide through all this noise to make a good decision come 2026?
Priscilla, I have always told people that what Uganda beats other countries is because we offer buffets in our restaurants. I have not gone to any country where there is a buffet of food. You have Katogo, you have this, maybe Nigeria tries, and to a small extent Ghana, those two only. But most countries, they offer you rice and this, and you pick and go. So the only thing is that the buffet offered is of poor quality food. Poor quality food. There are 8 candidates. But these candidates, you have just said yourself here, even just sustaining a one-day successful campaign is a big problem. So at the end of the day, Ugandans are not fools. Ugandans, at the end of the day, are divided into 2. The ones who feel oppressed and the ones who are benefiting from the system. That's what I have seen in Uganda. You find the haves and have-nots. Yes. The ones who have something to protect, they are protecting their gains. Yes. The ones who are sleeping hungry and they don't have anything to protect are saying that we also want those gains of yours. And for that case, you produce a 2-horse race. These others are just trying to camouflage there. But it is going to be a 2-horse race. And it's going to continue. Whether one horse is very big and another one is small, is still a calf, no problem. But we are going to have a 2-horse race. And that's why in Uganda, you are going to see a huge rally of red and another huge rally of yellow. You wait when the campaigns come to Kampala here. When they come to Kampala here, people have been saying that it looks peaceful, the police is not. You wait when the campaigns come from Arua. They come from, and they now come to this region in Uganda.
But it's already there.
You are in Kampala. Nobody has campaigned in Kampala.
Been transversing Uganda.
No, they have only gone to they went to Luwero and Mubende and Mitiana. You wait when they come to Kampala here. That's when you are going to see policemen running around and picking people. Why? Because you are in Kampala, and that's why I like Kampala. In Kampala, that's where there is some semblance of civic competence. In Kampala is where they don't elect an MP because he dances for people. There are some constituencies, yes, but majority of the MPs here.
What about Western Uganda?
Western Uganda, I've not seen so much. It is an aristocratic thing of fighting. An aristocrat, you must be a son of a general or a rich man. a son of a rich man. That's what I see in Western Uganda. But their contribution in parliament, in terms of bills, in terms of contribution, in terms of oversight, I don't see much.
Okay.
So for me, I think
It's an empty space.
for me, I think,
Empty, totally.
that this is a false start. And for those who know athletics, once there is a false start, you cannot correct it in the process. They have to come back and restart.
Okay.
So the politics of Uganda needs to be restarted. And this restarting is, we should be debating what formula are we going to use to restart this politics from the false start that we have, that now people have turned the campaigns into dancing shows.
Reset.
You just go to dance.
Speaking of starting, our time is about to stop, but allow us to start the final conversation that I'd want to pick your minds on, and that is the upcoming exercise by the Electoral Commission and nominations of members of Parliament. Let me start with you, Honorable Henry. You do have the NRM in the primaries. Lots of conflict, lots of incumbents losing their positions and coming out to publicly state they'll come back as independents. Some of them have already gotten the blessings of the party chairman. How is this going to affect the party's position when it comes to MPs and the party trying to find the formation that it needs finally in the 12th parliament?
Well, tell me first, the independents, you know, we are going to have a parliament with a big number of independents. That is, that's what I see. And the reason why we are going to have a big number of independents, because people have lost trust in the candidacy of members of parliament representing parties. And by the way, I must declare the conflict of interest here, that I'm going to be an independent candidate in Rwanda County West. I did not participate into primaries because I foresaw that is a sham. And indeed it ended up being so. And most of the NRM sitting members of parliament, or those who participated, they did not get fair treatment. And even the NRM itself, the NRM leadership, accepted that. And the epitome of that was the SEC elections at Kororo. Because whenever it's the SEC elections at Kororo, you see you had the chairman of the party himself at 3:00 when, for example, the youth were in chaos, and he was saying, okay, we shall take this matter to the tribunal. There will be a re-election. It happened. When there was entrepreneurship league elections, the chairman himself said, no, stop those elections. It is a rigged process. They had to go back in it again. When it comes to this other top position,
Did they elect?
At least they were
appointed.
They passed people unopposed.
They are appointed.
It's okay.
As you wrap up
but there
submission.
was an opposition. Yeah. When it comes to this other top position, I saw my brother Bariomunsi condemning and said this was a sham elections in front of the president. Yes. So that was the epitome of what kind of elections.
All right, Honorable Henry, allow me to ask you to stop it right there. Our time is running out.
So therefore, in one sentence, the emergence of independent candidates is not only in the NRM. We only have independent candidates leaning to NOP, leaning to these other parties. Okay,
so speaking of the other parties, they're right here and they can speak for themselves. PFF, UPC, readiness of people standing on your cards. Where do you stand as parties? I'll start with you, but please make it short for time's sake.
We are ready to tumble in whatever there is, in the muddy waters, in the murky establishment. We will still make our voices heard to give Uganda, the citizens of Uganda, a choice. And as you limp, we will be working towards a better political environment
Okay.
that will emerge. You see, whatever you do, there's a tomorrow.
So I add on that, for the possible positions that you do have on MP status, have you released the final list of
How many?
people that will be standing on the PFF card?
We don't need to give you a list.
No, we don't want to also get the
There are
list. We just
people-
want to
there are
know,
people
who
have
have
you
been
finalized that list?
Listen, we have
Because
deployed people to carry our message, to present us to the nation.
Yeah.
And this platform, that is the minimum we've chosen to use this platform for.
Okay, one who states that he's the president of UPC. Where does the UPC
Not
stand
one who
in?
states, but one
No,
who
no, the
is.
courts have to decide on that issue.
No, I should be not. I'm not, but I should be the president, if only that systems in this country functioned. And I think part of the conversations, including about independence, is really about a collapse of systems, where, including political parties, things hardly work and work properly. In fact, the democratic process in this country will only be seen to be serious when political parties and organizations, public institutions, including independent organizations
Sticking
like
to the matter of readiness.
the judiciary and
Yeah.
others,
Yeah.
you know, are able to function and people have trust in them. So if you have a political party like an organization
Joseph,
like
my
NRA,
time is running out.
in 1 minute, that their own members cannot have trust and confidence in it, you've got trouble.
Okay.
As far as UPC is concerned, of course, ours gets slightly worsened, but not normally as bad in the sense that we don't have a clear leadership. But in terms of the members of UPC who want to participate in the elections, including many others whom we are attracting from other political parties, there may not be political organizations, there may not be as many, but we tend not to have many of these chapels. But
Okay. All right, I'm going to allow Dr. Robert the closing remarks
our systems
on
are
this.
generally much more
What
fair,
do you
yeah.
speculate of next the week as the Electoral Commission is readying itself? Parties are readying themselves. Members of Parliament are readying themselves.
Of course, it is going to be a rowdy period where we shall be receiving all sorts of people getting nominated. The issue is, how do you get credible 500 and so members of parliament to deliver our country to the next level? That is the question we should be struggling with. All sorts of people are going to come up, like we have been having a huge parliament of about 527. But when you look at the impact of that parliament to our economy, to our governance, to our many things, has not been much. They have not been doing the oversight role properly. Bills come and they are approved without even some people knowing what they are. If there is some argument, they call a meeting at State House, which I think it is a rape of democracy, and they come back and vote otherwise. Yeah. So these people, next week, we are going to get, of course, NRM is going to bring a lot of people because you saw how it was hectic in their primaries. NOP will bring a reasonable number. I think for the first time they may provide candidates for all constituencies, and I think we need to congratulate them. Then, as Honorable Banyanzaki said, they are going to be a hell of independents. And some of those independents may, at the end of the day, win the election. For us, what we want as citizens, we want a parliament that works for us. We don't care whether it is NRM,
have been
whether
the
it is
voices of
we need
my
a parliament that works
citizens
for us.
today. You have heard them. You've heard their views and their opinions on the matters discussed on the Citizens Chat show today. And that's where we stand as a country. They are representing between Ndugu Joseph Ocheno and Honorable Salam Osumba. There is a citizen, which that is you. Between Honorable Salam and Honorable Henry, there is a citizen in between there, and that is you. Between Honorable Henry and Dr. Robert here, there's a citizen. Between Dr. Robert and myself, there's a citizen, and that is you who has to make the final choice. But it has to be an informed choice. So keep it to the Citizens Chat show, and this runs on a weekly basis. Thank you so much for having been with us. I am Priscilla Regina Nalwoga. Until we meet again, bye-bye.